All right. Welcome, everyone. We are excited to be talking to you tonight. And I know a lot of people are just joining. So thanks so much for taking time out of your night to join us. And we will just go ahead and jump right in. The recording is available. So if people show up late, they'll just have to listen to that. So my name is Melody Hartzler, and I have with me also Dr. Nicole Grams. And we are going to talk tonight about what we're getting wrong about weight loss. Weight loss is such a hot topic right now. We are hearing it every day from not only the drug industry, but also, other studies that are coming out about, different effects of the microbiome and just all kinds of things we're going to talk about. So it's just been a huge hot topic. And so we wanted to make sure that we provide you guys with some information and tell you a little bit at the end about a program that we're offering. So a little bit about me. I am a clinical pharmacist that found functional medicine through my own health journey. And that was after I had my daughter and started to see, well, it was a really stressful experience. I was just telling Nicole that my doula was in jail. She had tongue tie, it was just like all these things coming down at the same time. And certainly the lack of sleep and all of those things, I think just my body it was like, okay, that was the one thing that sort of set me over the edge. And the recovery process was really hard. And so then I started to experience abdominal pain and bloating and some of the symptoms that many of you probably listening also experience. And then my daughter started to have food allergies and reacting to foods as we were starting to feed to them. So I started to learn more about leaky gut and SIBO and allergies and intestinal permeability, all those things. And that just led me down this full path to, learning more about functional medicine and during my own healing journey. And then along that journey, I realized that pharmacists could really use this in practice. And so I started to implement a lot of functional medicine principles in my practice. And I have been working with patients with diabetes for the last 10 years or more than 10 years now, I'm getting old. But as far as taking care of them in a doctor's office setting. So I've been a dispensing pharmacist occasionally, part-time during residency and on the weekends once in a while before we had kids, but have most of my career been inside a family medicine office and working with patients on chronic diseases and helping them manage their blood sugars better. And so I started to see more of the connections between the weight and the gut and diabetes and the gut and all these symptoms people are experiencing. And so that really led me to learn more about the connections there as well. So starting to use that in my practice. And so fast forwarding more, now we have a team of over 40 pharmacists that are passionate about helping people thrive and really getting to the root cause of their symptoms. And one of our symptoms that people are, experiencing is just the inability to lose weight or inability to, really get back their vitality and their energy. And sometimes it's not even about the pounds. Sometimes it's about those other wins that we're, looking for too. So that's really why we're here tonight is we want to share that message with everyone and just make sure everyone has the ability to do that. So I also have with me Dr. Nicole Grams. So Nicole, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and why you're here?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think I have as much prepared as you did.
That's all right.
Kidding. No, I'm Nicole Grams. I'm a pharmacist in Wisconsin, and I am a member of the Farm to Table team, obviously. I came to functional medicine after I needed it myself. There's a whole lot of complications that happened in my life that I could have used it for. So I started learning about food and toxins and all of the, body systems all being connected. Let's all sort of after I could have used it at most in my life. But now I apply that in combination with the experience and training that I have in anxiety coaching to kind of look at the whole person and really tease out what it is that's going on underneath, whether it's a physical thing that's going on, whether it's a mental thing that's going on. And I think that's something that is going to come in super, super handy during this program. Yeah, I am excited to be your coach in in the program, and I'm very excited to get this going because I think it is I think it's an incredible program. I mean, I put part of it together myself, so I don't want to brag, but but anyway,
yeah. Yeah. So we hear a lot of what we hear from our patients, from maybe coaching clients, or even just other pharmacists that we're working with. They are just, what we're told in school is that you eat less, exercise more, that's how you lose weight. And while calorie deficit in theory works for a little while, if we continue to pull out that same amount of calories over time, our body's going to adjust to that. And then we're not going to continue to lose weight. So it's not quite a calories in, calories out model like so many of us were taught. And also, like, I just think about like those 100-calorie packs that are out there and like how silly that was, right? That we could eat 100 calories of a cardboard thing that tastes like an Oreo or maybe has some like resemblance of an Oreo. And that was supposed to be healthy, right? It was supposed to be healthy. But thinking about like 100 calories of an avocado and like the nutrients that provides of our body, even though it's probably like a tablespoon of avocado or something crazy, but like how much fuller you're going to feel from that 100 calories of an avocado versus that package of air crispy Oreo resembling things. So there's definitely just this conversation now around like nutrient density and also anti-inflammatory nutrients and other things that are really, contributing to helping people lose weight. There's even, we're not going to dive too far into time restricted eating and like, fasting and things like that in this setting today, but that's also another conversation, and depending on, and it's very individualized, any of these things. And I think that's the hard thing when we were in pharmacy school or other people were in medical school or nursing school or wherever you're learning about some of this health thing, or even just what you're seeing on the news, so much of it is just like what works for everybody. But the problem with that approach is if you tell, the society this all works for everybody, there's going to be a lot of people that it doesn't work for because everyone is so individualized with their genetics and all the other things that we're going to talk about. So most weight loss programs, when we titled this, what we get wrong about weight loss is that most programs focus on quick fixes. And so it's just a very simple, you do this for a short period of time and all of a sudden you're going to drop this weight, and people don't make those long lasting changes. And just like I already mentioned, the one size fits all approach, if we're not here to do a one size fits all approach. We are doing group coaching as part of our program, but we make sure that we're going to have some individualized components of that and individualized recommendations for those patients. And we also realize that willpower, and Nicole maybe has some better comments about this one. So maybe I'll let you share a little bit about why relying on willpower as the fuel is a wrong thing for weight loss programs.
For anybody in this room, you have probably tried to willpower yourself through something and it does not last. So that is something that I think this program does really good or really well, is learning how to not rely on willpower to fuel your whole journey. So we're looking at other techniques and other thought patterns and lots of different strategies to stay on track, keep going when you've, maybe made some mistakes or feel down or whatever, but we're here to not rely on willpower and still get you to where you want to be.
Sure. Yes. And then unrealistic expectations. You want to talk a little about that as well?
Yeah, I think, there was actually an example of this. There was like a gym near my house that was running this 6-week, one-on-one trainer for super cheap sort of thing. So I checked it out and they're like, oh yeah, if you lose 20 pounds in the 6 weeks, you get it for free. And I was like, excuse me? like, first of all, I'm going to starve myself and sweat all of that out. And then it's all going to come back the second I stop. So it kind of sets people up to have these false expectations of, oh, I'm going to lose this weight and it's going to stay off because it's going to be so easy once it's off. So if we're being realistic, it's not easy to lose weight and sustain it, because if it was, we would already be there. We wouldn't have to have a program like this. But yeah, setting realistic expectations to me means something that you can make your lifestyle instead of trying to rely on a diet or willpower or those sorts of things to keep going.
Yes, absolutely. And then overly restrictive food plans, sort of coming off from that, like if you're going to lose 20 pounds in 6 weeks, obviously you're going to have to restrict a lot of things, maybe not eat it all.
Right.
But, but as far as, the restrictive nature of things, again, we talked about before, if you continue to restrict and restrict and restrict, your body is smart. It starts to
Mhm.
go into more of that storage mode and tries to save nutrients. So it won't burn them as, you burn your macros as quickly and things like that. So we definitely want to be careful about that as well. And then skipping the underlying cause. So that's a lot of we're going to talk about over the next few minutes is what are some of those underlying root causes that most Americans don't really think about as connected to weight loss. So we're going to move on and start talking about some of those. So what actually is inhibiting ability to lose weight in a lot of patients? And so we're going to dive into some of these things a little bit more in depth, but gut dysbiosis, so if you haven't heard that term, that just means that the microbiome is imbalanced. So we have certain bacteria that are maybe overgrown in the gut that shouldn't be as high of levels. We might also have potential pathogens that are causing a problem, which are sort of like the bad guys. And then there's yeast and other organisms that aren't even bacteria that might be contributing to this. And a lot of the organisms in our gut actually provide signaling molecules to help tell our pancreas to make insulin and to help, the GLP-1, which is the hot medication class that does impact and help people lose weight. Our body actually has what's called postbiotics, which are these byproducts of good bacteria that actually stimulate the production of GLP-1. So we have to have the good bacteria and the diverse microbiome to stimulate that natural process in our body. And so we also know that underlying inflammation in the gut can also contribute to problems that are leading to metabolic imbalances. So another thing that a lot of people aren't thinking about are blood sugar imbalances. And so even if someone doesn't have diabetes yet, or maybe doesn't even have pre-diabetes yet, they can still have a really high fasting insulin. And insulin is that storage hormone. So conditions like PCOS that you see on the screen, oftentimes patients have really high insulin levels. And again, that hormone is telling your body to store things as fat. And so that's another thing that we want to make sure that we're addressing is that insulin resistance. And again, insulin resistance is associated with conditions like PCOS and diabetes. And some other chronic conditions. And so hormone imbalance is a huge thing. We see a lot more people in menopause struggle with their weight. And so part of that is because estrogen plays a big role in our metabolism, as well as the balance of estrogen and progesterone. And so definitely, there are ways that and some women will lose their cycle altogether because they, before they even should, because of stress or other things going on in their lives. And so we want to make sure we help people get back into balance there, because there's a lot of reasons beyond even weight loss to get your hormones back in balance. And then environmental toxins is another big one we'll talk about. So many different things that are contributing to weight gain related to looking like hormones. And they're starting to call them obesogens because they're causing this insulin resistance and things related to that. And then we've mentioned stress a few times already. Stress causes our hormone cortisol to go crazy. And if you haven't done our stress solution already, that's actually included for our participants in the program. But we have a whole day of learning about stress and how stress is impacting our body. Included for you guys to check out. But there's so much with not only like cortisol should be this nice, like we wake up, it gets a little bit higher, and then throughout the day it continues to drop so that when we go to bed, we're sleepy, we don't have this cortisol keeping us awake. But for some people that doesn't go down and it just stays high. And then when we're in that restful period of our time, of our day, when we're supposed to be preparing for bed and sleeping, and our body does a lot of rejuvenation overnight, including, some of our, caloric burning and things like that happen overnight. So if we're in this like sort of go phase, we're not in that rest and restore phase. And so that makes a big difference for our bodies as well. And then medical conditions, autoimmunity and inflammation. And then we mentioned the inadequate rest and sleep can also contribute to having trouble with weight loss. So taking it a little bit further, we are talking about fitting these changes into real life. We know that no one is probably going to drop 20 pounds in 6 weeks, like Nicole said. And we are, wanting to make sure that, we're not going to be, sort of popping you out of your real life and putting you into a bubble and, walking around with you and making sure there's always a 4-course meal that includes all your veggies and your proteins and all of the things that you need. You still have to live in your life and in your job and in, with your family, and be able to deal with those cravings, emotional eating, feeling deprived, like those kinds of thought processes. And so much of that is in, Nicole can talk more about this, but so much of that is ingrained in, what we've learned and what kinds of environments that we grew up in. But really trying to make sure that you have the tools that you need to be able to handle when those kinds of things come. So Nicole, do you want to say anything else about this section?
I think, but the whole session, I was going to say, you pretty much nailed that bullet point. Willpower, we already talked about, it doesn't last. So we're going to use other strategies to get moving, to get motivated, to, keep going on the plan that you want to be on. Another issue that people often run into is unsupportive friends or family, or, like if you are doing your best and you end up going to a potluck, or you go to, a Super Bowl party or something, and the only options there are food that is going to make you not feel good, right? What do you do in those situations? And how do you find people who are going to help support you in those times, or just in regular normal life without the potlucks, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
The feeling of being ashamed of maybe even being at the weight that you're at, or, when you slow down progress or plateau, or you slip up, there's a lot of shame that can happen around that. And what we're hoping to do is, what we're going to do is help you be able to process that and not and hold a space for you to be able to feel whatever you want to feel and still move on, right? Because a lot of times we end up in the shame spiral, and then we overeat, and then we hide, and then it's just this secrecy that is not necessary or helpful. No motivation kind of links with the willpower. So how do we do this without relying on motivation and willpower, right? Beating yourself up also goes in with that, low self-esteem. If you're not confident that you're going to be able to make the changes, you probably won't make the changes. So that is definitely a focus that we've got in this program.
Awesome. And then our unique approach to weight loss. So like we mentioned, we are going to address not only nutrition, but the microbiome, stress management, also talking about the hormone balance, cravings, and nutrient depletions, and then also giving you personalized guidance, providing a flexible approach, building your confidence, because that's a big thing. I mean, there's so many people that have, this imposter syndrome, and they're looking out and like feeling like they can't do this themselves, and you can. And so that's really what we're going to be working on together. And like Nicole said, also giving you space to make mistakes and realize that you're never going to like not ever eat a cookie again, right? Like there's going to be days that I hope not, right? Like we want to make it flexible and make people be told food is so much part of how we have joy with community, and community is such an integral part of health. And so when we gather around the table, if you haven't heard our podcast, we are gathering around our virtual table when we're talking on the podcast, but so much of like, and that's really what we want to give people the image of, that we're sitting at the table, we're having conversations with our audience, but in real life, that's really where life happens, is around that table. And we know that, being able to make, the right choices, and sometimes around the table means there's going to be some fun stuff there. And we don't want guilt and things like that associated with those times, because those are really important times. So, and then really compassion and support is really what we're here for, and, how we're approaching weight loss differently. And then as far as nutrition goes, we are going to be talking about, portion control without feeling too restricted. We're also going to be talking about reducing inflammation. So that's a big component that's probably not in our traditional conversations that are calorie in, calorie out type conversations. And also sustainable changes. We can't ask you to flip your whole kitchen and turn it upside down and turn it into a new, organic restaurant in like 2 days. So we are going to be going slow and steady and making sure that you have the tools that you need. And then moderation and flexibility. So making sure that, again, this isn't like 100% of the time, all the time, I have to be thinking about this. We're wanting this to design this so that it's flexible for you, your family, and your situation. So a little bit about the gut microbiome, just to give you a little bit more information about what we mentioned earlier. So the gut microbiome is involved in energy balance, insulin sensitivity, and immunity, and consists of up to 100 trillion microbes. So we are going to, with our patients, oftentimes we work to help provide guided support to rebalance the microbiome, because that improves our body's ability to break down food, because sometimes the bacteria in our gut are actually what's producing a vitamin or a nutrient, which is sort of crazy. And then even other foods that we eat. So this is sort of crazy, but like vitamin K2, which is a really important nutrient for putting calcium into your bones and good bone mass, is actually made because cows' guts, the microbiome of cows, like ferment and produce this K2. And then that's why it's in butter and grass-fed dairy and all this stuff. So cool fact, but we're going to protect your gut lining, again, reducing the inflammation, and also 90% of the immune system is in your gut. So we are going to help make your immune system better in this process as well. So you may have heard some of this information before, but leptin is one of those hormones that's like the satiety hormone. And if we have decreased leptin production, that can cause more hunger. We can also have this resistance to leptin, and also we have increased inflammation when our microbiome, and that causes us to store fat. Altered ghrelin production can also cause more hunger, and then insulin resistance also contributes to more fat storage. So a lot of this can relate back to the microbiome. And so that's one of the reasons why functional medicine, a lot of the times for our patients, starts with the gut. And then obesity is also associated with a shortage of individual micronutrients. So despite excessive consumption of food, oftentimes we see that patients don't have that nutrient density in their food. And what we mean by nutrient density is there's more, it's more nutritious, even though it's maybe like higher calorie, for example. So we think about like nuts, and I already mentioned avocados, or like meats, or grass-fed meats, and eggs, yolks of eggs are very rich in nutrients. But sometimes dietary choices are causes of micronutrient deficiency. Sometimes there is lack of access to nutrient-rich foods. Sometimes changes in absorption patterns. So maybe if there's been any kind of surgeries that have impacted the gut, as far as whether that's a weight loss surgery in the past or other types of surgeries, but that could change how your body actually absorbs nutrients and may cause you to need more nutrient supplementation compared to another person. And then again, those inflammation things that cause altered micronutrient metabolism can also be impacting patients and their inability to lose weight. So these are just some of the prevalence of these micronutrient deficiencies. So you can see B1, almost 30% of the population is deficient, and B6, 11%, B12, 3 to 8, folic acid. These are ones that are pretty often supplemented in cereals and grains and things, so we don't get as high of deficiencies, but some data even shows up to 45% of vitamin C, which is sort of crazy because you think vitamin C people are getting a lot of, but it's one of those nutrients that we use a lot of too. So I think that's part of it. And then thinking about some of our fat soluble vitamins, like this vitamin D, like 80 to 90% of the population is vitamin D deficient, and obviously the further north you live, the worse off that is. Someone was sharing with us recently that's going to be on our podcast coming out, but she was living in Southern California, and in Southern California, her doctor, she was having fatigue, couldn't get out of bed, like all of these things. And her doctor wouldn't check her vitamin D. It's like, you live in Southern California, you're fine. And then when it was checked, it was like 8. So it doesn't really matter where you live, how much sunshine you're getting. You may not be converting it well. Everyone needs to get their vitamin D level checked. If you take one thing away from this webinar, get your vitamin D level checked. And then zinc's actually an interesting one too. So there's a good portion of the population that are zinc deficient, partially due to a lot of the gut issues, because zinc is a nutrient that the gut tries to use to heal a lot of the inflammation and intestinal permeability. Also just the, soil and things aren't as rich in these minerals anymore. But they actually have done studies in patients with prediabetes. So their blood sugars are creeping up a little bit, but aren't fully at the diagnostic, criteria for diabetes, that actually shows zinc supplementation reduces the conversion from prediabetes to full-blown diabetes, and also reduces insulin resistance, reduces inflammation. So zinc has a lot of roles in the body. I forget how many hundreds of reactions zinc is involved in, but it is really important nutrient, and especially for thyroid and metabolism and even our immune system. We heard a lot about it during COVID related to immune function. And then selenium is also another nutrient that's also very important in thyroid function that also can be deficient. So a little bit about stress. So cortisol levels go up when we have stress. So stress is the little glands, they're called adrenal glands, that sit on top of your kidneys, are actually what produces cortisol. And sometimes people could have, problems where they actually produce too much cortisol. So there's a condition called hypercortisolism, or Cushing's disease, which is like one big spectrum of having a lot of cortisol, and people really struggle to control blood sugars. They might have severe depression. They might have, inability losing weight, especially in the abdominal region. But there are people that are more in the middle of that spectrum, right? They're not fully, full-blown Cushing's, but they might have some elevated cortisol that isn't optimal. And so that's really where we see this affect metabolism. We see, your body sort of go into survival mode because it thinks it's being chased by a bear all the time. And we're not being chased by a bear all the time. Our mind might think that, but in reality, we're not. And so we need to help our body get back into that rest and digest mode. And so with this fight or flight all the time, it goes into storage mode. We see increased belly fat. We see increased blood sugar because the body thinks you need that because it thinks you're running from a bear. And so we are going to see elevated blood sugar for that as well. And we're also going to see increased cravings for comfort foods because of the serotonin and dopamine release that happens when we eat those foods. So one of the things we're going to focus a lot on in this program is stress and how we manage stress, and really, helping people to balance those hormones. And so we have this vicious cycle between this increased cortisol, the stress, the weight that we gain. And so it just sort of all compounds because actual extra adipose tissue or fat tissue in the body can also increase cortisol, increase free fatty acids, increase insulin resistance. So there's a lot of sort of compounding factors here. And certainly we get, stress sort of keeps perpetuating when we, have this extra cortisol going on. So I'm going to go through this slide a little bit, and then we'll transition a little bit more into, things that our program includes. But this was a study particularly looking at stress management and evaluation over an 8-week stress management program on body weight, mental health, lifestyle. And these sessions included muscle relaxation, diaphragmatic breathing, guided visualizations, instructions on progressing one's way of thinking. So a lot of this mindset work that we are talking about that Nicole does a fabulous job with. But the group that actually, this was a study in Greece actually, but the group that went through the mindfulness and the mental health and the stress reduction, they had a larger reduction in BMI compared to the control group. So really, highlighting that these lifestyle interventions can actually make a big impact when we're talking about our weight. So Nicole, since this is your quote, I'm going to have you read your quote.
When you have a coach by your side, losing weight becomes a journey of self-discovery. And I really, really, truly believe that, because you have to discover a lot about yourself and who you are in order to make the changes lasting. It's not just about shedding the pounds. It's about finding the best version of yourself. And again, this is all about your whole self, not just the physical part, not just the mental part, not just forcing yourself through it. We're going to help you discover who you are and who you can be through the whole year that we'll spend together. It worked. Okay. So the Thrive program is a 12-month program that, again, is going to be focused on creating a healthy lifestyle change, or healthy lifestyle changes that will help you lose weight, feel great in your body, and improve your overall health. So again, whole body approach. We're talking about, we'll have lots of different meetings talking about lots of different topics, and plenty of time to have some Q&A and some live coaching pretty much every single meeting that we have. Let's see, coaching calls. There's going to be 26 calls throughout the year that will be providing the support and the information that you need at the right time in the process. So we're not going to focus on the nitty gritty details until the end, where we have kind of gotten used to making changes in your life, really getting you set up for success. So we're not going to talk about some of the information right away. We're going to talk about the stuff that's actually going to make an impact in your life. Melody, do you want to talk about the lab panel?
Yeah, so we're going to look at some of your labs. This is, a little bit more comprehensive than your doctor would run as far as panels. So we have some inflammatory markers, some nutrients that we're looking at. And then we have an optional, if you would like to do a gut test or a deeper micronutrient dive, we can do that. But to keep the overall program price low, we don't have those included in the general package. But yeah, so we're going to look at your CRP, which is an inflammation marker, and look at your overall inflammation, and dive into your glucose, look at your A1C at the beginning, at the end, things like that. So we do have this comprehensive lab panel included at the beginning and as well as the end of your journey to be able to look at the progress. And then we also are going to send you a scale. And so the scale is going to also be able to look at percentage of body fat loss, because sometimes one of the challenges is that when we're talking just pounds, we are measuring just like your whole body, which includes fat, muscle, all of those things. And so while most of the time when we're getting thinner, we are also we're losing mostly fat, but there are times if we are not building muscle or we want to be building muscle during that as well. And so if we're building muscle, we might not see as much of the number on the scale change, but we do know that, the adipose tissue is what is most reflective of, is reducing your insulin resistance and things like that. So we want to look at all of these things because overall weight is an important factor, but there's more to health than just that. And so we want to look at beyond just the overall weight number. And so we're going to include a scale for you and also those labs to do a little bit deeper dive.
So I already mentioned that the program is going to have 26 group meetings throughout the year to provide the support that you need. That is going to be a little bit front loaded, where we're going to have weekly meetings for 4 months so that we can get you all the information, get you started, get you set up for success. And then once you have a chance to get started, then we're going to do twice monthly meetings for 2 months, kind of taper that down slowly. And then we're going to meet back for 6 months. And this is a program style that has been proven to be very helpful for people, especially when they're trying to lose weight, because again, the struggle starts at the beginning when you're making mistakes, when you're, overthinking things, when you're not sure how to do it. So we're going to provide that extra support up front to set you up for success, and also provide the community aspect of not just me telling you everything that you need to know, but also having the people that are in the program together to give advice, information, provide support, be a shoulder be a person to lean on, all of that sort of thing throughout the whole year that we'll spend together. The topics that we're going to cover, it's wide ranging, and this is not an all-inclusive list, but nutrition, we're going to create a plan that works for you. We're going to talk about the different diet styles like intermittent fasting and different diets that you can try, and also help you pick the one that is actually going to work for you in your lifestyle. Again, we're not going to tell you to throw out your entire pantry and start fresh, because that's expensive and nobody has time for that. Right? But we're also going to talk about how to shift your buying pattern, or buying and eating habits without breaking the bank. We're going to deal with cravings, how to actually stop overeating without, again, willpower and force and shame. We're going to talk about eating away from home and what you can do if you're going to a restaurant or going to a party, those sorts of things, so you're prepared when those do eventually come up, because we don't want you to sit in your house like a hermit for the whole year while you're trying to lose the weight, right? Like that's not what we want you to do. We're going to talk about balancing blood sugars, examining food sensitivities, feeding your gut bugs like the microbiome that we talked about earlier. We're going to help you make mindful choices without feeling overly restricted. From a movement standpoint, we're going to teach you how to get your body moving in a way that feels good for you. I don't have a prescription for you need to, do this many jumping jacks and sit-ups and like I throw that out the window. I won't do that either. So we're going to talk about incorporating movement into your life in a way that again fits what you're trying to do. We're going to talk about tracking food and tracking movement so you can see the results that you're getting from what you're doing and really connecting those things together, and how to do it in a way that's not stressful and overly cumbersome as well, because that's also a hassle that we don't need in our lives. As far as rest, so we're talking sleep and rest during the day. We're going to talk about how to get more restful sleep so you feel better, how to deal with the challenges that might come up and prevent you from getting to sleep on time, and really work through all that, because rest is something that if you are not sleeping enough, your body will not let you lose weight, because your body is more stressed when you don't get enough rest. So it's producing more cortisol. It's hanging on to all of those fat cells and it is not letting those go. So rest is something we prioritize here. Stress reduction, we talked a whole bunch about this already. There's going to be talks about mindfulness and meditation, and also going beyond that into reconnecting with your body and listening to the signals that your body is giving you in order to make decisions in your life that will help you actually reduce the stress, instead of just trying to escape it for a minute, trying to, there's the standard lock yourself in the bathroom for 5 minutes so that you can have a couple of deep breaths. Like, we're going to go beyond that and really kind of dive into the mindset that you have around different things and beliefs that you might not even realize are there, that are influencing how you are making decisions in your life. Connection, again, we're going to have this group of people who are doing this together. I'm going to be participating too, so I will definitely share the struggles that I have throughout the time, because I'm a real person and I'm not going to do it all perfectly, and I hope that we can all kind of connect on that level as well. But yeah, we're going to have this supportive environment. Again, when you start to plateau or gain some weight back, we've got people that will listen, right? Goal setting, I'm going to teach you how to fail and not beat yourself up. And that is something that I think, again, a lot of weight loss programs don't address, because there's a lot of shame around, oh, I gained, 3 pounds back from what I was last week. Like, well, actually, that's pretty normal, especially for most, I'm assuming many of us in the program will be women. There are hormones to deal with that are not working in our favor to try to let us lose weight. So yeah, setting goals that are realistic, and also learning how to think beyond what your current limitations are. We're going to help you become the person who can lose the weight and keep it off, because you're probably not there right now. And if you were, you wouldn't probably be in this room today. But yeah, we're going to help you dream big and teach you how to set goals confidently, and, what to do about the setbacks that come up and without jumping ship, right? As far as confidence, I'm going to help teach you how to really deeply believe in yourself and find that inner confidence that so many of us are lacking. We're going to let go of some of the beliefs, again, that you have that are probably keeping you stuck, that you probably don't even realize are there. We're going to set goals. We're going to feel good about ourselves, feel good about our body, and, stick to our plans without forcing ourselves. And bonus, we're going to celebrate the whole way, because that is something that we are severely lacking, is that self-celebration. Click. There we go. So by the end of the first 6 months, so again, the first 6 months is, the weekly meetings and ending with the twice monthly meetings, you are going to be able to connect with your body and listen to its signals that it's telling you. You're going to understand the different types of the stress, whether that's mental, environmental, physical stress, and how they affect your health. You're going to be able to take control of your nutrition without struggling, and moving your body in a way that makes you feel amazing. And then by the end of the 12-month mark, when we are wrapping up the program, you are going to become the type of, spelling error there, become the type of person who can achieve the health goals that you set. You're going to know how to manage your stress in healthy ways that make you feel much better. You're going to be able to prepare meals that fit into your life using real whole foods. And that doesn't necessarily mean that you have to cook all of them. Side note, goal is to be able to keep the weight off. The goal that we have for everybody across the board is 5 to 7% of your starting body weight. Some of you will go much lower than that and be able to keep it off, or much higher percentage than that, whichever way, both ways. And we're going to help you feel empowered to maintain the lifestyle that you want. And I think that's about all we have to present. What questions do you guys have for us?
Yeah, feel free to put questions in the chat, or I think you can also raise your hand and we can unmute you so you can actually verbally ask a question as well. Anybody have questions for us?
And while we're waiting on questions, I do just want to thank all of you for being here and for listening. This is information that we hope to be able to help change a lot of people's lives with. So.
Yeah, and we also are so thankful that you took time out of your night, because I know everyone is busy, and we are offering a coupon code for everyone that's listening to the webinar, whether you listen to it tonight or you're listening to it on a recording tomorrow. But this week, which is today is September 13th and tomorrow is September 14th, 2023. But if you are catching this at the beginning, you can use the coupon code Thrive with us and it will give you 30% off our program. So that is our deepest discount that we're going to be offering, and you can definitely take advantage of that. We do have a 4-month monthly payment process. If all of it as once is too much for you, definitely check that out. And then if you have serious interest in the program and also like to set up a quick one-on-one call with Nicole, she is happy to answer your questions individually about that as well. So thank you, Melanie. Melanie is a colleague of ours in the effort of helping people get well through implementing functional medicine. So we're excited to have you as an advocate. So in the comments, she said, excited to share this with so many people.
Tracy asked, where do we get our lab work?
Yes, so that's a great question. So the lab work, if there is a LabCorp facility near you, then we will be doing it through them. If there is not a LabCorp facility near you, we will figure out what the options are in your area, but sometimes there are Quest or other facilities that we can work with to prepay the labs. So with this program, the labs are included, so you don't have to use your insurance on them. But if we have to get creative about getting a lab order from one of our physicians and having you go to a hospital if you're in a rural area, we'll get creative with you. But most of our patients will be using LabCorp probably. So question from Danielle, is the starting time the same for everyone or as people choose to join? That's a great question. So the goal is for everyone to start together and us to have cohorts. So we would start one group this fall. And so we're hoping to start in the next, hopefully 3 to 4 weeks with our first group. And then as we get that group going, then we will add additional cohorts. So if you are interested in starting this fall and taking advantage of sort of our special introductory pricing, then we definitely would rather talk to you now than have you put it off. But Nicole, do you want to say anything else about that? I think too, what Nicole mentioned about the group and like learning from each other is one of the reasons we like to keep it in a cohort, because you start to learn and become comfortable with sharing with that group of people. And if we're sort of always like rolling people into a group, that makes that more challenging.
Yeah. The cohort example is definitely what we're going with, and starting at the same time is beneficial because everybody's on the same page and, doing it together. We don't have a specific time or day of the week right now because we want to make it flexible, and we'll make it work when we get the group started. I'll reach out individually to find out what availability is best, because I don't want to plan something for, 9:00 on a Monday morning if nobody's going to be able to get there. But yeah, I know we all have busy lives, and I promise it will work out with the timing.
Yeah. Yes. And we realize there are multiple time zones. And so if the interest lies that we have a lot of West Coast people and a lot of East Coast people, we'll find a time that works, for each of those and run 2 cohorts together.
Yes.
So awesome. Well, I don't think there are any more questions, but we'll hang out for another moment. So Melanie asked, what's the best way to share this information with potential candidates? So I will send you an email, but we'll also send out a follow-up email to everyone. But we do have the link. If you click on the offers button in your side panel and you click on the Thrive with Us, that takes you over to our landing page. I'll also drop it in the chat box as well. And so you can share that. And at the bottom of that page, the Thrive with Us, which actually I think I can share my screen and yeah, share this on the screen. So at the bottom of this page, they can just click enroll now right there, but it tells them about the program. And then and we'll also drop this webinar in here on this page so people can listen that missed our session tonight, but there is also a schedule a call if they do want to have that one-on-one call with Nicole to ask questions before they get started. So, and then we have some testimonials there as well. So, but yes, great question. All right. So, well, we will wrap it up, but thank you so much. And we will be in touch via email with more information. And again, we really appreciate your time tonight. And thank you, Nicole, for joining me to spread the word.
Absolutely. Thanks everyone for being here.
Bye.